It's now time for us to take a look at news stories making headlines around the globe today. We begin here with the latest situation report of the coronavirus pandemic in Nigeria. 35 new cases have been confirmed, bringing the tally to 174, with 9 discharged cases and 2 deaths. Now, out of the 35 new confirmed cases, 9 of them are in Osun State, 9 are in Lagos, 7 of the cases are in the Federal Capital Territory, 5 are in Akwa Ibom, 2 are in Edo State, and there is 1 each in Ekiti, Kaduna, and Bauchi states, respectively. Now, currently, there have been 91 cases in Lagos, 35 in the Federal Capital Territory, 14 in Osun State, and 8 in Oyo. Akwa Ibom has 5, while Kaduna, Ogun, and Edo states have 4 cases each as it stands right now. Bauchi has 3, while Enugu and Ekiti have 2 cases each. Rivers and Benue states, respectively, have 1 case each. Meanwhile, the federal government of Nigeria has announced that all markets in states where a lockdown was imposed, being Lagos State, the Federal Capital Territory, and Ogun State, will be allowed to open between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. daily. The national coordinator of the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19, Aliyu Sani, said this on Wednesday during a briefing by members of the task force. He said, as for supermarkets and food stores, their opening hours will be between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. And all owners and managers have been warned to screen their staff and customers before entry. Now, Doctor, I know how we both feel towards this situation at hand, and there's a lot to dissect here and a lot of questions to ask, because sometimes I wonder where the basic grounds of common sense lie when we start to think of ways in which we can help our people during a crisis or a pandemic in this case. What is your take on this decision now by the Presidential Task Force? Well, quickly, I think it is shocking that it had to take after 2 days since the lockdown began for government to now come forward with the implementation guidelines. Yeah. You will have expected that these implementation guidelines will have been worked out fully in greater detail before government announced the lockdown in the first place. Thank you. Because this is like, speaking first and thinking after. So, and it raises questions, about the amount of thought, the quality of thought that went into the initial plan. Mm-hmm. But in any case, this is a very unusual situation. We have not had a pandemic at this scale before. So I guess that the public officials are learning as they go along. But again, the measures that they have introduced, one is to release 70,000 metric tons of grains from the National Grains Reserve to make this available to the poor who will need food. I think that that is a good idea. Second, we've also been told that they're going to start conditional cash transfers for the vulnerable and the poor in the society. But they are having a target of 1 million. Now we will expect transparency and accountability in that regard, so that the money does not end up in the wrong hands. Exactly. Because the people are already anxious now that, look, how would this 20,000 naira be distributed? I'm sure that if you and I are included in that list, we'll probably collect it too. But I mean, that's just by the way. And then, of course, the announcement about the markets. You will recall that when the first announcement was made about this lockdown, the Ogun State government had approached the federal government to allow Ogun State to start the lockdown on Friday. Yeah. And the argument of the Ogun State government was that, look, we need to give the people some time, a little window for them to be able to stock up in terms of food and other necessaries that may be required to survive the period of the lockdown. Now, the federal government is just realizing the value of that suggestion, and it's now turning around to say markets can open from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. and some other stores from 10 a.m. till 4 p.m. But how about public transportation? The people who are going to open these shops, they don't necessarily fall under the category of people who have been classified as offering essential services. Mm-hmm. Now, public transportation is not available. How do they get to their shops? Mm-hmm. How do the workers in the markets and in the supermarkets and pharmacies, how do they get to where they are going? Mm-hmm. Now, I think there is a wrong assumption in what has been announced, and that's the assumption that people live very close to markets. Exactly. There are persons who live in places where
they may need to travel 2-3 kilometers before they get to the market. Now, how do they get to the market? How do we sustain the supply chain for the supermarkets, for the shops, even for the markets? Now, let us even assume that you live in a neighborhood that is very close to a major market where you can buy food. In the absence of public transportation, how do you take the foodstuffs back home?
Thank you.
Are you going to carry the basket of food items on your head and trek 3-4 kilometers? So I think not enough thinking has gone into this, and as we move on, government may have need to further review, this aspect of the guidelines that it has offered. What has been done in Kaduna State, for example, is to say that every Tuesday and Wednesday, the curfew, the lockdown will be lifted, and people can have the opportunity, the markets will be open, you buy whatever you want to buy. So after Tuesday, Wednesday, the lockdown will continue again. But in the absence of public transportation here in Lagos, Ogun, and the Federal Capital Territory, it will be very difficult to implement those guidelines. And you may just have, government may just have created unnecessary tension between the security agents who are on the road to enforce the lockdown. I hope they have also been duly informed, because yesterday in Lagos, there were reports of some of the security agents brutalizing people, harassing people. They should realize that this is an emergency situation, if you like, and they are there, to assist the people, not to flog them, not to harass them.
And Doctor, another question I actually really have here for the government too is, by opening the markets, how does that then stop or lower the spread of COVID-19? Is it because you think you're reducing the hours that the markets are open for, that all of a sudden that's going to reduce the spread of COVID-19? A lockdown is a lockdown, and a total lockdown is a total lockdown. And there are ways in which you go about this. What the Ogun State government did was the right thing. You give your people time. You give your people time to stock up on what they need, get those things and items into their house, and then you impose a lockdown. At the end of the day, the reason a lockdown is necessary is in order for us to flatten the curve and in order for us to stop the spread of the virus. Nobody is anti a lockdown, especially looking at the new numbers that we have in the country this morning. We are going up to 200 nearly. We're at 179 now. So I really and truly am very upset at the lack of thinking or the lack of thought that has been put into the average man or woman's life with regards to this situation right now. I do believe government have created a greater problem here. They have created a lot more confusion. I don't think any thought was put into this whatsoever. And quite frankly, this is wrong. But let's see how it plays out. And let's move on to our next headline this morning. Now,
I was going to add a footnote to that given the numbers, the number is 174.
Yes.
But what is frightening there is that 22 of the new 35 cases came through the land border.
Exactly.
But the excuse that was given by the minister is that because these are Nigerians returning from neighboring countries, there was no way they could be turned back. I think maybe government should just take a decision, whether you are a Nigerian or you are whatever, just stay where you are. Because 22 cases coming from, is it Republic of Benin or Côte d'Ivoire that they are talking about, could have been prevented.
But can you also stop your nationals from coming back home? The issue here is that we don't have the healthcare infrastructure that we should to be able to look after our nationals, sick or well, that need to come back into the country. Take the United States of America, for example, letting their people come back home. But they have, well, they're struggling at the moment heavily, right? But compared to our situation here, a lot more infrastructure to try and cope with the problem, even though they are really struggling here. I believe it was Premium Times that put out an article the other day showing that we have 1 ICU bed per 250,000 Nigerian citizens. So that is the reality of our situation. And it's extremely upsetting. But we do have to go on a quick commercial break now. And when we're back, we will be continuing with news headlines for today. Stay with us. Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News, and we're still looking at news headlines of today. Now, Muhammadu Abubakar, the son of Nigeria's former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, has been speaking on his COVID-19 status and warned against the danger of fake news. Let's take a quick look.
On the 20th of this month, I tested positive for COVID-19, and later that night, I was brought over to the isolation center at the Gwagwalada teaching, university teaching, hospital, here, where I've been since. I'm currently on my 11th, going on my 12th day here. I hope to be out soon. Perhaps when my next test is taken and the results are favorable, I, will be on my way out, hopefully. But I decided to do this video just so I could speak about my experiences, and I hope it will be of help, of value to the society and to people out there, Nigerians in particular. When I came here, my first few days, I was asymptomatic, but I was nervous. I had a level of anxiety, a little bit of trauma. And so it was fairly difficult few days, especially being the index case or the first case here in Abuja, so I think that was really the main challenge. But day by day, I grew stronger, in mind. Thanks largely to all the goodwill, the prayers, and the support I got from a vast array of Nigerians, many people I don't know, but of course, more obvious, my family, my friends, my associates, and just a whole lot of people who've been very supportive. So we thank God I'm well and I'm good. But one thing I'd like to speak to Nigerians about that I experienced, fake news. Fake news is very bad. It compounds your problems if you're in a vulnerable situation. Perhaps being from a political family, I didn't really feel
Well, there's more to that video that we can't take at this time, but I think it's good that he did come out to speak and share a lot on his experience and also cover a serious topic, which is fake news. Doctor?
Well, I think first let's wish him a quick recovery.
Absolutely.
And it's good to see that in spite of the fact that he tested positive, he's still in very good spirits. And, our prayers are with him and his family. And the point he made about fake news, of course, when his case was reported, there were all kinds of speculations. The first story that went out was that he was at the PDP rally, the rally of the People's Democratic Party in Ibadan, which a lot of people had complained about, given the massive crowd that attended it without any respect for the rules of social distancing. But immediately, it was then made clear that it was never at that PDP rally. So that's fake news in one regard. The second aspect with regard to him is that later it was also said on social media that he traveled with the governor of Bauchi State, Bala Mohammed, and that they had a handshake. And I think a statement was again issued that he didn't have a handshake with the governor of Bauchi State, who later also tested positive. But, he talked about anxiety. Everybody is anxious at this time. And the rumor mill, has been very active. But it is important that people just follow the guidelines and not cause unnecessary panic by disseminating incorrect news that may even have implications for human relationships and that may amount to stigmatization of persons, or that may contain innuendos, that may not be fair to other parties.
Absolutely, and that's why it's great that in a moment with our guests on the show, we will be looking at the psychology of coronavirus, which you also wrote about yesterday in a brilliance column. But for now, our business analyst, Rotus Odiri, joins us for the latest in the business world of today. Good morning, Rotus. How are you this morning?
I'm fine, thank you. Good morning, Dr. Abasi. Yes, so the central bank has announced that contributions towards the private sector relief fund for COVID-19 has hit 15 billion naira. So again, the breakdown is pretty lengthy, but the main contributors, at least so far, we've got the Central Bank of Nigeria and Aliko Dangote, who have donated 2 billion naira each. We've got Mr. Abdul Samad Rabiu of the Bua Sugar Refinery, Shegun Agbaje of GTB, Tony Lumelu of UBA Transcorp, Harris Holdings, Oba Otudiako of First Bank, Jim Movia of Zenith Bank, Herbert Wigwe of Access Bank, and Femi Otedola of Imperial Power Distribution, each contributing ₦1 billion each, in addition to the $2 billion from the central bank and from Aliko Dangote. And then there's a host of other businesses that have also contributed as well, dominated by financial services, of course, Citibank, Sterling Bank, and a host of others. So it's very encouraging to see that the private sector fund has been growing and that it is coming from the private sector, because what the central bank governor, Godwin Emefiele, was trying to emphasize was that government can't do this alone. And so with his background from financial services, he's able to rally a number of important folks from the private sector to assist in donating to this. So we'll continue to monitor. Arise News have been on it this day as well as been on. A number of media circles have been watching the fund grow, and we'll keep monitoring them. We expect the numbers to continue to appreciate. Well,
let us commend first Alhaji Aliko Dangote, who is the leader of that private sector coalition against coronavirus disease. And when it came forward, within 24 hours, we had so many people, contributing, either in their individual capacities or through their organizations. And on that list, published by the Central Bank of Nigeria, we had a total of 37 contributors, amounting to 15.325 billion. Now, that looks like a lot of money. But what many Nigerians have been asking for with regard to this contribution by the financial services providers and also certain trust funds that have been set up by the states is that, look, there should be proper accounting of the funds. There should be accountability. This is to support government at a very critical time and to save lives, which is in line with one of the major objectives cited by the president in his Sunday broadcast. So I think it's a good development. It shows that this is a time that calls for altruism. In the face of this pandemic, what is important is public spirit, public solidarity. And these public-spirited persons and organizations should be assured that they will be for long remembered for how they have, stood up to defend our community that seems to be threatened at this time.
And also, it's important to note that this is open to all Nigerians. The central bank governor made that clear. He made the appeal to, all Nigerians. So everybody, our viewers watching, everybody else is free to contribute to this fund. I think it's diaspora aspect open as well, so as well as for Nigerians here as well. So.
And I think all I'll say at this point before we move on is just to echo what Dr. Abati said as well about the fact that really and truly it's the fact that we want to also know that it's going to trickle down to the average Nigerian. We need that transparency. We need that accountability to be sure, because it's all well and good to have this fund. And yes, we must commend our private sectors, our private sector people and businesses that have come forward to do this. But let's see how it trickles down to the average man or woman that needs it the most. That's the most important thing here. Yesterday, I saw that the Victim Support Fund in Nigeria, I think it was actually through T.Y. Danjuma, had donated 1 billion naira, but it was going straight towards IDPs, So we want to know how it's going to trickle down to the average person. But Rhodes says thank you for the latest updates, and thank you to our private sector too. We'll go on a very quick break, and when we're back, our sports analyst, Aaron Akerejola, will be here with the latest in sports headlines for today. Stay with us.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Joining us now with sports stories is Arise News sports analyst, Aaron Akerejola. Aaron, good morning.
Good morning, Doctor.
Good morning, Aaron. How are you?
And quickly this morning, one of the biggest stories that are actually rocking, even though we know that quite a lot is actually going on, is the fact that several journalists here in Nigeria have called out Nigerian footballers who are well-to-do and earn big money that are yet to actually coming or get bitten by the bug of philanthropy that has been going around in this particular time. One thing that's been certain, everyone has spoken about the fact that this is a collective fight and we are all in it together, and everyone is trying to pull in funds to ensure that we can actually get past this ugly episode. And we are yet to get the first contribution from any major footballer here in Nigeria.
Well, we can only appeal to them.
Yes.
This is about, as you said, philanthropy.
Yeah.
At a very critical time. So if we call on them, I'm sure there will be some of them who will make contributions. Yeah. But what I find strange is that sometimes people have expectations. Nigerians have this sense of entitlement. I know some persons who had contributed some amount of money, and you find some Nigerians going onto the social media
is that all you can contribute?
To say that what they have contributed is not enough.
Yeah,
no, you know, so I hope that will not happen in this case.
Anything we'll do at this point, it is not, that is extremely wrong, because you cannot dictate what somebody should and would give.
No, honestly, I think the doctor is right. We can only appeal to our footballers that are playing with international teams, not our footballers that are playing locally, because really and truly...
No, certainly not locally. We're talking about players who earn 200, 300, 100,000 pounds a week.
Yeah.
We're hoping that...
everybody...
Because we know that footballers...
Including us. Everybody should be part of this fight.
Yes.
You contribute what you can afford.
Exactly, like Rota said just before you came on.
Let nobody dictate, because they were abusing one lawmaker for contributing only water and buckets and soap.
Yes.
In his neighborhood, in his constituency. And people went after him saying, is this all that you can give? We don't need your water and your bucket. But that's not fair.
It's also the psychology of it, because we live in a country that is drenched in poverty. So the way the average man or woman would think in that situation, we have to understand our unique problems here in Nigeria. Nigerians are angry. So when you see someone that you believe can give more, you feel undermined. It's the psychology of it. It's unfortunate, but that's our unique situation.
Well, how do you know how much a person can offer?
Exactly.
At a particular time?
Exactly.
Anyway, thank you, Aaron.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you very much indeed.
See you tomorrow.